Disastrous Air India crash of 171. Now, out of 33 Boeing Dreamliners that AI.
Moving on. Now, viewers, even as the probe in Air India flight AI 171 crash is continuing, some shocking claims have been made by a law firm in the UK.
Now, in fact, the family members of the victims were asked to fill out this questionnaire. The questions here were as follows that were flagged off by the lawyer of the kin of those who died in that horrific crash.
Boeing builds amazing planes. The 747 changed international travel. The 777 is a global workhorse. And the 787? A game changer in long-haul efficiency. But battery fires grounded it in 2013. Software gremlins trigger random resets mid-flight. And now, something small might have caused a full crash. One of the most advanced jets in the world lifted off from Ahmedabad. 42 seconds later, it crashed into a medical college building. And investigators found something weird. The plane's ram air turbine might have deployed seconds before the crash. So why the heck did it pop out during takeoff? Let's roll back June 12th and watch a dream flight turn into a nightmare right now. There were 241 people on the plane, and sadly, none of them survived, except for one. That one survivor was a 40-year-old British man sitting in seat 11A, right next to the emergency exit. According to reports, the part of the plane he was sitting in broke off from the rest of the aircraft during the crash and somehow landed on the ground near the building. He unbuckled his seatbelt, crawled through a hole where the emergency door had snapped open, and escaped. He had burns and injuries, but was alive. His brother, who was also on the flight, but sitting in a different seat, didn't make it. The crash also killed 19 people on the ground, including students and staff at the college. Over 60 more people were injured, many of them badly burned. The fire was so intense that it reached temperatures of 1500 degrees Celsius. More than 300 firefighters, along with 60 fire trucks and rescue teams from all over, were rushed to the site. The Indian Army, disaster forces, and even Western Railways joined the rescue efforts. All flights at Ahmedabad Airport were cancelled for the day, and the entire area was sealed off for safety and recovery. Now let's talk about the part of the plane that everyone's focusing on, the ram air turbine, also known as a rat. It sounds like something tiny and unimportant, but it could actually be the reason why this crash happened. So what even is a rat? The ram air turbine is a small wind power device built into the belly of the aircraft. Its shape is kind of like a mini windmill or fan. Normally, you'll never even notice it, because it stays hidden. It only pops out when something really bad happens, like if the engines shut down or the aircraft loses electrical power. That's when the rat kicks in. Its job is to generate just enough power to keep the most important systems running, like the flight controls, basic lights, and communication tools. It's basically like the emergency backup battery for the entire plane, but instead of using electricity or fuel, it spins in the wind as the plane moves through the air. That spinning creates power. There are two ways the rat can be deployed. It can come out automatically when the plane detects a major system failure, or the pilots can deploy it manually by pressing a switch inside the cockpit. It's designed to help pilots land the plane safely when all other systems fail. It's not meant for takeoff, like, at all. And here is where it gets scary. Investigators now believe the rat on Flight 171 may have deployed during takeoff at the worst possible moment. But not because the pilots pressed the switch. They think it happened automatically because of a glitch in the aircraft's sensor system. That means the plane may have thought it had lost power, even though it hadn't yet, and the rat came out on its own. After the crash of Air India Flight 171, many people were left heartbroken, especially the families of British passengers who died. Some of them didn't just want to wait around for the official reports from India or Boeing. They wanted answers fast. That's why they got help from a UK-based legal group called Keystone Law. This law firm is now leading a private investigation into the crash. Basically, they've hired their own team of experts to find out what really happened. And these experts are not just random people, they're some of the best in the field. One of them is a former Royal Air Force pilot who also flew Boeing planes during his career. The other is a US aviation lawyer who's worked on major crash cases before. Their main focus? The ram air turbine. Yes, the rat again. According to these investigators, the rat wasn't supposed to come out during takeoff. It's only meant to be used in extreme emergencies, like when the engines fail or the plane loses power mid-air. But on Flight 171, something went seriously wrong. The rat seems to have deployed automatically while the plane was still climbing after takeoff. That may not sound like a huge deal at first, but it actually is. When the rat deploys, it creates a lot of drag. Drag is basically a force that pulls against the motion of a plane, kind of like trying to run with a heavy backpack on. It slows the plane down, which is very dangerous during takeoff when the plane needs speed and lift to climb into the air. So what these experts believe is this. The rat caused extra drag that the engines couldn't fight off. Combine that with any other small problem, like a fuel issue or an electrical glitch, and suddenly, the plane does not have enough power to keep going up. And then, just like that, it crashes. They also think there might have been a sensor error. That means the plane may have thought it was in an emergency and sent the rat out by mistake. This could explain why it deployed without the pilots doing anything. While the UK-based legal team is doing their own private investigation, India is also running its official government investigation. This is being handled by the AAIB, which stands for the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau. They are the ones responsible for figuring out what really happened in cases like this. Right after the crash, the most important thing investigators needed were the flight recorders, also known as black boxes. These are two small but powerful devices on every airplane. One records everything the pilots say in the cockpit, and the other one records technical data like engine performance, speed, altitude, and more. Both of these were recovered. One was found on the rooftop of a nearby building, and the other was pulled from the debris a few days later. They were quickly sent to Delhi for a detailed examination. Along with this, another important government body called the DGCA, which stands for Directorate General of Civil Aviation, stepped in. They are like the top authority for everything related to flights and aviation safety in India. After the crash, the DGCA took action fast. They told all Indian airlines that fly the Boeing 787, which is the same type of plane as Flight 171, to do extra safety checks. These checks include a deep look into the plane's fuel system, engine sensors, rat deployment switches, and other important parts that could cause a problem during takeoff or mid-air. The DGCA also said that airlines have to follow stricter rules for checking these systems before every flight. This is to make sure no other plane faces a similar issue. Basically, they are trying to stop the same thing from happening ever again. At the same time, India's aviation minister, Ram Mohan Naidu, held a press conference. He said that a full report on the crash will be ready in 3 months. The government wants to take time to make sure the findings are 100% accurate before releasing anything publicly. But while this is all happening, some of the families, especially the ones from the UK, are getting impatient. They don't want to wait for months. They want answers now. And right now, the two biggest names in the middle of its blame game are Boeing and Air India. Let's start with Air India. Their CEO, Campbell Wilson, was actually on another Air India flight going to Paris when the crash happened. As soon as he found out, the flight turned around mid-air and brought him back to Delhi so he could take control of the situation. That shows how serious this was. On the other side, we have Boeing, the company that made the aircraft. Their CEO, Kelly Ortberg, was supposed to attend the Paris Air Show, which is a huge international event for the aviation industry. But he canceled his appearance after the crash. That's a big deal, and people noticed. Boeing stock dropped almost 9% right after the news came out. Investors and experts are clearly worried. Now let's talk about what everyone is asking. First of all, the engines. One of the engines on Flight 171 was brand new. It had just been installed in March 2025, only a few months before the crash. So the big question is, How could a new engine fail so fast? And even worse, if both engines failed at the same time, which almost never happens, then something much bigger must have gone wrong. That leads to the next question. Was it an electrical system failure, or maybe it was a combination of small problems that added up really fast? That's what investigators are trying to figure out. Some people are blaming Air India. Maybe they missed something important during regular checks. Maybe there was a small issue that could have been fixed if caught earlier. Others are blaming Boeing. Maybe they sold a plane with a hidden design flaw, something no one saw coming. And now that flaw may have caused a major disaster. After the crash of Flight 171, the Tata Group, which owns Air India, announced that they would give 1 crore, about $120,000, to the families of each passenger who died. It sounded like a big amount at first, and it definitely helped the families a little during a really sad and difficult time. But here is where things got complicated. According to international law, specifically the Montreal Convention, which is a set of rules that airlines around the world follow when it comes to accident and compensation, Air India might actually owe more. Legally, the families could be eligible to receive 1.5 crore, about $180,000, or even more, depending on the details of each case. That is why around 40 families have filed a case in UK courts. They're not happy with the amount they were offered. And more importantly, they want answers. They say that this 1 crore payment is only an interim compensation, which means it's just a first step, not the final settlement. Many of them believe they deserve the full legal amount and want proper justice for what happened. Some families also feel like the airline and the companies involved are trying to move on too quickly without telling them the whole truth. They believe that the crash could have been prevented and that someone needs to take full responsibility. Until that happens, no amount of money will feel like real justice to them. And there's been big reactions from leaders too. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the crash site and also met with the injured survivors in the hospital. He showed support and promised help. That gesture meant a lot to many people. At the same time, in the UK, King Charles III ordered a moment of silence during the Trooping the Colours ceremony. Senior royals even wore black armbands in memory of the victims. That was a powerful message and showed respect. But while those gestures were kind and respectful, the families say what they really want is justice, not just sympathy. They want to know what actually caused the crash. They want the people responsible to be held accountable. And they want full compensation, not partial payments or temporary support. And the people often start asking, has this happened before? And sadly, yes, it has. There's been several plane crashes in the past that were caused by similar issues, especially with system failures, bad sensors, or engine problems. Let's look at a few major ones. One of the most well-known crashes happened in 2019. It was Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302, which was on a Boeing 737 MAX. Just 6 minutes after takeoff, the plane crashed and killed all 157 people on board. The reason? A software system called MCAS kept pushing the nose of the plane down, even though the pilots were trying to pull it up. This happened because of a faulty sensor that gave the wrong reading. What's worse is that this was not the first time. Lion Air Flight 610 crashed the same way just 5 months earlier, killing 189 people. So in both of these cases, a small sensor issue led to the crash of a brand new Boeing aircraft. The result? Boeing's entire 737 MAX fleet was grounded worldwide for almost 2 years. The company lost billions, and a lot of people lost the trust in them. Another crash that is kind of similar to Flight 171 was Air France Flight 447 in 2009. It was flying from Brazil to France and crashed into the Atlantic Ocean, killing 228 people. The plane's speed sensors froze because of ice, and the autopilot turned off. The pilots got confused and the plane went into a stall. It was later found that better training and clearer system design could have prevented the crash. Even more recently, there's been crashes where both engines failed, like US Airways Flight 1549 in 2009. You probably know it as a miracle on the Hudson. A flock of birds hit both engines shortly after takeoff, and the plane had zero power. But here's the difference. The pilots glided the aircraft safely into the Hudson River, and everyone survived. That crash showed how a good emergency response can make all the difference. Now, coming back to Flight 171, experts believe that something triggered the emergency system, maybe a sensor issue, and the rat deployed at the wrong time. If that's true, then it feels a lot like the 737 MAX situation again, where a safety feature ends up causing more harm than good. All these flights had new or modern planes. That tells us that technology isn't perfect. So, if you want to stay updated, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell icon, and drop a comment below. Do you think that Boeing is hiding something? Or was this just a freak accident?